Congratulations on the film. I saw it on Monday. A fantastic piece of filmmaking, because one of the things I love about it most is it doesn't shy away from telling the whole story, rather than just stopping at the moment where somebody becomes a hero.
Yeah.
So what was it that drove you to do that? Because it would have been an easy escape to paint somebody as being a hero.
To me, this wasn't simply a boxing story. It was a story of a father-son, relationship. It was a paternal love story about these two dreamers separated in age, one looking up to him as a mentor, and how they achieved. They'd walk through the world talking about this, this dream they had, this power of the shared dream that no one believed in. No one believed in it but them, and they achieved it. But with that achievement came the corruption of instant success. It's a boxing movie, but it's really a tragic love story, between these two men. And that's the story that I wanted to express. It's the story of Prince Naseem Hamed. It's about the relationship between Prince Naseem Hamed and Brendan Ingle. It's the cradle to grave of their relationship.
Because I'm only a casual boxing fan, but there is so much to take away from this, as you said, about relationships. And this comes from an era before the X Factor and things like that, where people would suddenly become stars with millions of pounds. But it delves into the same kind of issues and tensions.
Yeah.
So it's very much still a lesson for today as to what happens to people when they do attain their dreams.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And as much as this is a boxing story, I've always thought of this as a rock and roll story. I think of Brendan and Naz as less Rocky and Mick and more Lennon and McCartney. They're giants that raise each other up, but they also cast a shadow over each other's lives and cast resentment. Look, success and money does corrupt. There's no way around that. Not everybody. But if you could allow your egos to get out of the way, you could achieve even more. I mean, there's a tragedy with Naz is that he's one of the most successful boxers in history, but he could have even been more. He could have been even more. And look, just keep the egos in check, keep your feet on the ground, keep around the people that came up with you, and be humble, I suppose, as AJ would say.
And you got some fabulous young actors to play young Naz.
Oh yeah.
For me, the first half of the film is almost like the Billy Elliot of boxing. In that sense.
Oh, thank you. You know what? That's exactly what we're going for. I said, look, I want this to be Billy Elliot meets Rocky with a little bit of Rocket Man. That was it. Literally how I went to pitch it. I was inspired by the movies of the 90s, the early 2000s, both aesthetically and in terms of tone. Brian Tufano as a cinematographer. He did so many of the iconic 90s films, and he always shot them in a way that I described as vibrant grit. These were set in tough places, but they were vibrant. And they felt like you wanted to be there, and that's what I wanted to do with this. And you saying Billy Elliot, that's music to my ears. Totally what I was going for.
And just finally, we've been talking about Brendan with everybody because he's such an ability to spot talent and bring talent on.
Yep.
Who for you has been the Brendan in your life who's spotted your talent and has kept pushing you on forward throughout any difficult times and things like that?
Look, I had very supportive parents. Growing up in Barnsley, when you say you want to be a film director, not many parents are going to, back you on that one. But, mine really believed in me. So, I've really got to credit my parents wholeheartedly. And my brothers as well. One of my brothers is a composer on this film. And, their belief that they had in me was, has always been enormous, the support they've had. And then, there's various people throughout my career that have helped me a lot, journalists like Finn Halligan, or maybe the Screen's National Star of Tomorrow, that was huge to my career. My agent Maddie. There are people that, even when I'm down there, really are the wind at my back. So there's a lot of people I have to thank.
Well, congratulations on this film. It's been fantastic to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you